But are you aware of these emails being sent to officers?
Senator, you mentioned the word accountability, which is something we have not had for the last 4 years.
Are you aware of these messages being sent to officers?
Certainly, I'm not aware of that. It's not one of my efforts, but there's been no accountability for the disaster of the withdrawal in Afghanistan. And that's precisely why we're here today.
Excuse me.
Is that leadership has been unwilling to take accountability. It's the time to restore that to our most senior ranks.
You've written publicly that DI policy is a distraction and have military personnel walking on eggshells.
Yeah, sounds good. Joining me now, great congressman from the state of Texas, Chip Roy. Okay, Chip, looked to me like Pete did pretty well today. I'm assuming he's gravy. The question is the other nominees, but I don't know. You tell me. You're inside the belly of the beast.
Well, I had to enjoy yesterday. The Washington Post put out a list of, who they support and don't support, and they had 4 they didn't support. My good friend Russ Vought being one, and Pete Hegseth being one, which tells me those 4 are the ones to really go fight for, right? If the Post is opposing them, then we know those 4 are great. So it doesn't mean some of the others aren't good too. But look, Pete did a great job today from what I saw. I was able to watch maybe 30 to 45 minutes of the hearing while I was doing other things on the House side. But he pushed back hard on, the narrative that the Democrats are putting forward against him, pushed back on all of the, slander that's been levied at him. And I think he did a great job of that. But importantly, he made very clear that, he is he will be the soldier's secretary, right? He will be the guy that will be fighting for the guys that have actually been out there, taking bullets, that have been on the front lines fighting for this country. Not the brass, not the fat cats in Washington, not the K Street lobbyists who are the ones that have been driving our defense policy for too long, which, by the way, I hope he sends that message to Congress, because my colleagues have their head up their rear right now, and they're about to try to go do a deal with Democrats to pass a monster appropriations package rather than cutting spending and limiting the size and scope of government, which is no way to start things under the Trump administration.
Okay, you have to tell us all about that. What's happening right now?
Well, right now, the House Freedom Caucus, which gets maligned by my swamp creature Republican colleagues, we went and presented the administration and our colleagues in the House and the Senate what we believe was a reasonable approach to increase the debt ceiling, something like $4 trillion over 2 years, in exchange for guaranteeing that our border gets funded and secured, defense gets funded and secured, $200 billion for modernization, not DEI and woke garbage. And then importantly, that we start cutting Biden's garbage, right? EV mandates, cut the student loan fiasco and pay for those things. We wanted upfront cuts, and in exchange for that, secure the border, defense, and a debt ceiling increase for the president. But our swamp creature colleagues are rejecting that. And instead, what they're talking about now is the monster big reconciliation package, which won't have the cuts in place that need to be put in place unless we fight for them. And importantly, they're now talking about taking the debt ceiling, probably 4 years and $10 trillion, attaching that to the appropriations package, plus funding for California, and put that all in one great big package, because that's the way swamp creatures think. I hope the president's team comes in and rejects that and tells them it's a bad idea. We need to change the way this town works, and that's not the way to do it.
Good grief. These people, none of these people care about the debt at all. Chip, do that. None of them, they're just going to keep going until the dollar just straight up collapses.
Yeah, and they literally have an excuse for everything. And their biggest excuse right now is that Chip Roy and the Freedom Caucus will never vote for a debt ceiling increase. Well, you know what? We put a proposal on the table. We did say we would vote to raise the debt ceiling, but only responsibly if we get cuts in the things that we need for this country. They want to continue like business as usual. I'm not going to stand for it. And I'm not going to be leveraged, by the way. I'm not going to let them put the border security on a monster big bill that doesn't cut spending and has K Street giveaways in the tax policy, rather than doing what we need to do for the hardworking American. And right now, you know what that is? Getting rid of the inflation that's taxing the hardworking American family, getting rid of the health tax on the American people by having these big insurance companies screwing them. And so I'm going to stand up for the little guy in this country rather than what's going on in Washington.
Good grief. Some things never change. When is all this stuff coming, Chip?
Well, we put forward a proposal. We think we ought to do a 2-bill approach. And look, by the way, I understand why the president says he might want a 1-bill approach to try to get it all done together. I'd be happy to do that if my swamp creature friends weren't more for tax giveaways that won't go to reduce deficits and won't cut spending. But what I'm trying to do is get early wins so we can show unity and deliver for the president. Get the debt ceiling, get the border, get the defense, and so forth. But right now, the swamp creatures want to try to drive this train through in the next few weeks. I think that will harm the president's agenda. I think that will harm our unity. So I'm going to keep trying to, convince these guys to do the right thing. There are a lot of us who want to do the right thing, and we'll keep working to do it.
Well, at least Joe Biden's all over it. He's sending the Secret Service down to the border. Here he was.
Look, let's get something in mind about the border. When I became president, the numbers came way down, number one. Number two, we had a circumstance where I pushed very hard for a bipartisan agreement to put more people on the border, more Secret Service agents. And guess what? He's on the phone saying, don't do it. Don't do it. Make me look bad.
Oh, Chip, this nightmare is, it's less than a week left, Chip. I don't know if I can take it. I might have to go to a cabin in the woods for a week. I can't do this anymore. It's so embarrassing.
Well, first of all, the first part of it was just a, bald-faced lie. I mean, and Bill Malugin pointed out yesterday, he does great reporting for Fox on the border, but it's just straight up a lie. I mean, the numbers obviously skyrocketed. Your listeners and viewers know that. But that last stuff just shows you, sharp as attack Joe Biden. Democrats knew what was going on. Last July, when I was initially calling for him to have to step aside of the 25th Amendment to be invoked, because I thought it should have to happen and Kamala Harris should have to own it, it was because of this. We've had this guy as the president since last July, and we shouldn't. And so, look, here we are. Thank God President Trump won. We'll get busy on Monday. We'll swear him in, and we got to get busy working. But Congress needs to not stand in the way of the actual America First agenda, and I'm worried that they will. So my job is to try to highlight that and make clear what we're trying to actually do to advance the America First agenda.
Stay on them, Chip. Rooting for you. Come back soon. Appreciate it. Freaking Congress, as always. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.